I still dream of the acacia trees back home. The way they stretched toward the sky, silhouetted against orange sunsets that made the world look like it was on fire. I was 9 when I first told my father I wanted to see what lay beyond our small village in Somalia. He laughed and ruffled my hair. One day, Amina. Dreams need patience. 35 years later, I stand in a Minnesota winter, helping a Somali mother of 4 fill out school enrollment forms. The snow outside falls in thick, silent blankets, so different from the dry heat I knew as a child. This is my life now. Not what I imagined, but somehow exactly where I'm supposed to be. My name is Amina. I'm a social worker in Minneapolis, specializing in refugee resettlement. Every day, I meet people at their most vulnerable moment, when they've left everything behind and must build a life from scratch in a strange land with strange rules. I know this journey intimately. I've walked it myself. Our village was small, just 87 families clustered around a well and a school with 3 classrooms. My mother taught me to read by candlelight, her finger tracing across worn pages of books received from aid workers. Education, she would say, is the only thing no one can take from you. Civil War changed everything when I was 13. The sound of gunfire became as familiar as birdsong. We slept in ditches some nights, moving constantly. I carried my little brother on my back for 11 miles when we fled to Kenya. The refugee camp was supposed to be temporary, a few months that stretched into years. I turned 16, 17, 18 in that dusty place where hopes dried up like puddles in the sun. I volunteered as a translator, my English improving with each medical team that visited. One day, an American nurse named Sarah watched me explain vaccination procedures to frightened mothers. "You have a gift," she said afterward. "You build bridges with words." Sarah became my mentor, my connection to a world beyond chain-link fences. She helped me apply for an educational program that placed promising refugee students in American colleges. When the acceptance letter came from the University of Minnesota, I cried for 3 days. Not just from happiness, from fear too. I would be the first in my family to leave, to go somewhere so cold and distant that it might as well have been the moon. My father held my hands the night before I left. "Remember who you are," he said. "Remember your people. Go build bridges." Minneapolis in January was a shock to my system. The air hurt my skin. My coat, the warmest I owned, made people stare with pity. The campus seemed vast, impersonal, a maze of buildings and unfamiliar faces. I wanted to quit that first semester. My accent made classmates ask me to repeat myself until I stopped speaking. I called home once a month, the connection scratchy, my mother's voice traveling across oceans but sounding distant in ways that had nothing to do with phone lines. "I don't belong here," I told my roommate Jess, a girl from Wisconsin who played soccer and seemed to navigate American life effortlessly. "No one does at first," she said, handing me a cup of something called hot chocolate. "College is weird for everyone." I doubted her words, but the drink was warm and sweet. Small kindnesses became my anchors, a professor who stayed after class to explain concepts, the librarian who found books about Somalia, the dining hall worker who saved samosas for me because they reminded me of home. I studied social work because I understood displacement. 4 years of classes, internships, late nights writing papers about trauma and resilience. I graduated with honors, though my family couldn't attend. My diploma arrived in a cardboard tube, and I celebrated alone in my apartment with a cake I made myself. My first job was at a community center that served immigrant families. The pay was $32,000 a year, barely enough for rent and student loan payments. I lived with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment where the heating broke twice during winter. But the work felt meaningful. I remember Halima, a Syrian mother who arrived with 3 children and a plastic bag containing their only possessions. Her husband had been killed in Aleppo. She spoke no English, had never written a check or used a microwave. "I can't do this," she told me in Arabic, her children clinging to her like small shadows. I took her hands, the same way my father had held mine. "One step," I said. "We take one step today, another tomorrow." We found her an apartment. Enrolled her kids in school. Connected her with ESL classes and job training. 6 months later, she brought me homemade baklava at the office. "You made me believe," she said simply. That moment crystallized something for me. I wasn't just filling out forms or making referrals. I was holding space for dreams that seemed impossible, just as others had done for me. I worked at the center for 5 years, eventually becoming program director. My salary increased to $48,000, enough to rent my own place, a small one-bedroom apartment with plants in every window. At night, I would sit on my fire escape, looking at the city lights, still amazed to be there. The turning point came when I was 37. A funding cut threatened to close our refugee assistance program. We needed $150,000 to keep it running, a sum that seemed astronomical. I found myself at a community fundraiser, expected to speak to potential donors, wealthy Minnesotans in expensive clothes who had never known hunger or displacement. My prepared speech felt hollow, inadequate. When I reached the podium, I set aside my notes. "My first winter here," I began, "I wore 3 shirts to bed because I couldn't afford a heater. I called my mother in Somalia, and when she asked if I was okay, I lied. I said yes because I couldn't bear to tell her how alone I felt." The room grew quiet. Every day, new families arrive in this city feeling that same isolation. They bring medical degrees but drive taxis. They bring business experience but clean offices at night. They bring dreams that freeze in the Minnesota cold. I told them about Halima. About Omar, an Afghan translator who had saved American lives but couldn't get a job interview. About children translating medical diagnoses for their parents because no interpreter was available. "These aren't just sad stories," I said. "These are your neighbors. Your future doctors, teachers, community leaders." Investment in refugee resettlement isn't charity, it's recognizing human potential. We raised $210,000 that night. A local business owner approached afterward, tears in her eyes. "My parents came from Latvia in 1952, she said. "Your stories could have been theirs." I started my own nonprofit 3 years later. We call it Bridges, a nod to my father's parting words. We provide comprehensive support to refugee professionals rebuilding careers in the U.S., focusing on credential recognition and professional networking. Our office occupies the 2nd floor of a converted warehouse. Nothing fancy, mismatched furniture, computers donated by local businesses, walls covered with maps showing where our clients come from. But it's a place of transformation. Dr. Yusuf, a surgeon from Iraq, came to us after 2 years of driving for Uber. Today he works at a local hospital, having passed his medical licensing exams with our support. Fatima, who taught mathematics in Eritrea for 15 years, now teaches at a Minneapolis public school after we helped her navigate the certification process. Last year, we served 217 families. Our success rate for professional reentry stands at 73%, far above the national average. Numbers matter to funders, but they don't capture the real work, restoring dignity, rekindling dreams. I've learned that integration is never a straight line. It spirals, circles back on itself, sometimes breaks and needs mending. Policy changes can destroy years of progress overnight. A xenophobic comment can unravel months of confidence building. My work teaches patience. Progress comes in small moments, a client's first job offer, a child's report card, the day someone says, "This feels like home now." I'm 44 now. My hair shows strands of gray I don't bother to hide. My office contains artifacts of my journey, the acceptance letter from the University of Minnesota, framed, a jar of red soil from my village, photos of clients who have become friends. I visit Somalia when I can, though my parents have passed away. The village has changed. Cell phones where once we had no electricity, satellite dishes on roofs that used to be simple thatch. My accent sounds strange to local ears now, too American. You walk differently, my cousin told me on my last visit. Like someone who knows where they're going. I took it as a compliment, though sometimes I still feel caught between worlds. I dream in 2 languages. I celebrate Eid and Thanksgiving with equal enthusiasm. I've learned to ice skate and still make tea the way my grandmother taught me. This in-between space, it's not just where I live, it's where I work. The gap between what was and what will be. Between one culture and another. Between loss and possibility. Yesterday, a young woman from Ukraine sat in my office, her engineering degree deemed worthless here, her confidence shattered after months of rejection. Her hands trembled as she sipped the tea I offered. I made a mistake coming here, she said. I had respect back home. A purpose. I recognized her despair, the same I had felt that first Minnesota winter. Tell me about what you built before, I said. Tell me what you dream of building here. As she spoke, her hands steadied. Her voice grew stronger. I saw the engineer emerge from behind the refugee label, precise, thoughtful, creative. By the end of our meeting, we had a plan, certification courses she could take, professional associations she could join, a mentor in her field who had made a similar journey. It won't be quick, I warned her. She nodded, straightening her shoulders. I have time. And now I have direction. If you asked me what I've learned from straddling worlds, would say this: courage isn't the absence of fear but the decision to build a life anyway. Resilience isn't never breaking, it's finding the pieces afterward and making something new. I think of all the people still waiting in camps around the world. All the talents wasted, dreams deferred. The doctor washing dishes, the teacher driving a cab, the engineer cleaning offices after hours. I think of my young self, terrified and alone that first Minnesota winter. How impossible America seemed then. How impossible it still seems sometimes. But I'm here. Building bridges. Keeping promises. Making maps where none existed. What about you? What bridges need building in your community? What talents lie dormant among your newest neighbors? What conversations haven't happened yet? The distance between us is smaller than we think. The way forward requires nothing more complicated than recognition of each other's humanity, of our shared belonging on this small planet. This is the work of bridge building. It starts with a single plank laid across troubled waters. A hand extended. A story shared. I still dream of acacia trees. But now they grow alongside Minnesota maples in my heart's landscape. Both belong there. Both have shaped me. Both remind me that roots can travel and still hold strong.